Hello friends, you're welcome to my channel. Thank you for tuning this channel. Today I'll be teaching how to draft a female shirt, button down female shirt. So I have some measurements I will be using for this shirt today. I measure from my shoulder to my bust length 12 inches. From my shoulder to my under bust 16 inches. From my shoulder to my half length 18.5 inches. Then from my shoulder to my full length of the shirt. So I have my shoulder measurement 18 inches. I have my bust circumference, the bust round measurement 44 inches plus 1. The 1 inch is for his allowance because it's a shirt. Now let me show you what I mean by that. Now see what I mean. If you have been following me for some time now, you should know how to take a perfect measurement. If I'm taking fitted body measurements now for myself right now, I will tight it like this. This is 43 inches, but for fitted dress that will have a zipper, I will free it by 1 inch. Now because it's shirt I'm making, I'm going to free it again by 1 inch. By 1 inch. Because it's a shirt. It's not supposed to be too tight even though it's fitted. And it's a button shirt. So this is how I got my bust circumference here. So instead of 44 that is fitted for zipper, I'm now using 45 for this shirt. I hope I have made myself clear. And the same thing I apply to the under bust circumference. I increase it by 2 inches instead of 1 inch. So I have 37 inches under bust. Half length circumference, I have 41 inches. And I have my hip. I have my nipple to nipple. I have my length sleeve here. I have my round sleeve, the upper round sleeve, the bicep round sleeve, and the wrist round sleeve. So this is the fabric I will be using for this shirt. It's 2 yards of fabric. I will just keep it aside and draft it on my pattern for you to see clearly. So I have a line here. This line is my starting point. And I rule another line here close to me. That is my center front. Now this line here is 2.5 inches. Now this 2.5 inches is for my plackets, is for my button placket, or you can call it a button extension. 2.5 inches. Now when to hem my button extension, I'm not going to use this 2.5 inches. If you check what I have here now, you see here is close to 1 inch. You can use half inch, but I prefer more than half inch. Close to 1 inch. Let it not get to 1 inch exactly. So like 3/4 of an inch is okay. So this one now is my button allowance. This allowance is my button allowance. When I button it, this is the space. The two fronts will climb each other like this. While this one here is my button extension where I'm going to fold half inch in like this. I see now half inch. So I hem it till the down. So all of this I'm using 2.5 inches to get it. So I'm going to start by marking all my measurements. I will mark from my shoulder to my bust length, which is 12 inches. Then from my shoulder to my under bust length 16 inches. My shoulder to my half length 18.5 inches. Then I will go down to my full length 27 inches. Then I will add seam allowance of 1.5 inch. So I'm going to rule all of this line together for you to see. So I just indicate all my lines, my bust length, under bust length, half length, and the full length. This is my seam allowance of 1.5 inch. So I will start from the upper parts like this. So I want to fold the button allowance, the button bracket. I'm going to fold it inside like this. Then I will leave this button overlap, this one here. I'm going to leave it, but all my measurement will start after this button overlap. All my measurement will start from this line, this way. I'm not going to calculate this. So I will start by marking my neck. The neck width, if you don't want the shirt neck to be too open, you use 2.5 inches. From this button allowances, we are marking the 2.5. But if you want the shirt to be open a bit, you use 3 inches to still be okay. So you have to decide what you want. So the neck depth, I will mark 3 inches. Then I'm going to mark my shoulder measurement divided by 2 from this same line. It's 18 inches divided by 2. 18 inches divided by 2 to give me 9 inches. So I will mark 9 inches like this. Because of the method I will be using to drag these shirts, I will add 1 inch allowance to it. You can add half inch, but it's better for you to add 1 inch. Later you can trim it. So from this point, I will come down by, you can use 1 inch for slim person. You can use 1 inch for the shoulder slope, but I would like to use 1/4 here for my shoulder slope. So I'm going to connect it to this point now, to this neck point like this. So this will be my shoulder slope. So I'm going to use my curve roller to curve the neck like this. So from this shoulder line, I'll mark my armhole. I'm using 9 inches, my front sleeve divided by 2. So automatically this has become my chest line. Now I will check my shoulder measurements. What I have here, the same 10 inches. I'm going to apply it here, and I will rule like this. Then I will shoot out 1 inch arrow from this point, 1 inch arrow like this. So from this 1 inch, I can now curve my armhole like this to this line. Then I will check the midpoint of this armhole divided by 2. This is 9 inches divided by 2. So I have 4. So I have 4.5 here. For slim person, you use half inch. For my size, I can use 3/4 inch. 3/4 inch to give my front armhole shape. I'm going to curve like this. And from this half inch, I will connect to my shoulder line. So this is the shape of my front armhole now. So at this point, if you want your shirt to have that, since it's fitted as a female, this is when to calculate the dart. Now this is my under bust. So I will just use my nipple to nipple, our normal way of marking that. Nipple to nipple here is 8 inches. Divided by 2, that will give me 4 inches because I'm cutting one side of the front. So I will add half inch to it. So I will be using 4.5 to mark my dart. Now my 4.5 is from this line. I'm not calculating this button allowance. So I'll mark my 4.5 like this to my half length, and I will rule like so. So when it comes to the hip, the full length, I don't need to use a 4.5. You can add half inch to it to make it 5 and connect like this, because the hip is bigger than the under bust. That is if your shirt will be up to the hip. So from the hip length, I will come up by, you can come up by 1.5 inch. From the bust line, you can come down by 1 inch like this. Then just Then from the under bust, you mark half inch this way, half inch this way. From the half length also, half inch this way, half inch this way. And you connect it like this. You blend it to the that line, and you connect this. You also blend it. This is our normal way of marking that. Then you blend it to the hip line. So this is how you can mark your that if you want your shirts to have that, but not all the materials. If I'm using Ankara, I like to add that, or even princess that, to my shirt. So the next thing I will be doing now is to add my bust circumference. My bust circumference here is 45 inches. 45 inches divided by 4. I'll just mark 1/4 of it. Then my chest line, I'm going to use that same 45 inches. I'm using the same because it's shirt. I would not like to use a upper bust circumference so that I can lift my hands freely. Now my under bust circumference is 37 divided by 4. That will give me 9 1/4. I will mark my 9 1/4 like this. Now if you're using that, you add a seam allowance for that 1 inch, but I'm not using that for this shirt because of the kind of fabric I'm using. If you're using a fabric that is busy, you can add that to it. My half length circumference divided by 4, I'm going to mark like this. So my hip circumference divided by 4, I will mark like this. It's 48 divided by 4. So I'm going to connect this bust line. I'm going to connect the bust line to my under bust and connect it to my half length line and blend it to my hip line like this. Now what are you seeing now? Now this shirt is not up to my hip length. My hip length is 28 inches, but the full length of this shirt is 27 inches. So I can reduce something from this hip length for the dress not to be bogus. I can take away half inch. That half inch is a lot. That is half inch times 4. So that is, I can connect it like so now. But if your shirt is up to the hip length, you can take it like that down. So I will connect it down like this. Now this waistline, because it's shirt, I will not like to use this shape here. So I'm going to blend it. I will just make it not to be too sharp. I see now. So at this point now, I can now add my seam allowance. If you're using this line, the hip line, you add your seam allowance if your shirt is up to the hip. But I'm not using that line, so I will add 1 inch seam allowance to my shirt. Just 1 inch. I'll keep adding 1 inch. 1 inch. If you're very sure of your measurements, if you're not sure of your measurements, please add up to 1.5 inches. Now let me extend this one till down. At this down part now, you don't leave it straight, but there are some shirts that you can leave straight. I will use 2 inches to curve my shirt now. Now we'll just check from this point now to this, my button allowance here. What I have here is 12.5 inches divided by 2. So this will be my midpoint. So my curve should go this way now. Should go this way. I see now. This is the midpoint. This is the midpoint that I marked. So my curve should go up to this midpoint. So I'm going to cut it out now. This is my length, and the button placket is folded low. So I will cut from my length like this and cut the side. the neck, the button placket is folded. So I will hold it like this and cut the neck. If you're using the 2.5, you cut 2.5. If you're using the 3 inches width, you cut the 3 inches width. At this point now, I will come to my shoulder like this and take away 1 inch. Very important. I'll just mark my 1 inch like this. I will explain better for you when I'm drafting the back. So I will follow my line like this and roll. Because it's a shirt, there will be collar, and the collar gum is heavy, so material are very light, so it's very important that you use this method to cut your shirt so that you have a fine shirt. So I'm going to take this 1 inch out like this now. I'll keep it aside. Now this is my back pattern. 2 ways of doing it. If you're perfect, you can pick the front like this and place on top of the back. Mind you, this allowance is for button, this allowance here. So if you're placing it like that, you also calculate this allowance here at the back. You see the line here? This line is to help the back balance very well. What we call a zipper budge. I also apply it on my shirt if I want a fitted shirt, except it's up and down that is free, you can ignore it. But if it's a fitted female shirt, I also apply this back shape to it. So if you're using this method that you want to place this one on top, you should just place this line. Are you seeing now? Are you seeing the line the way it is? So this allowance, you have to sew it inside this one and this paper. It's 1 inch allowance, while this one is for button. So you place the line, align both of them together like this, and come to the down part. Also align it together with the down. Are you seeing the line that they are matching together? So you pin it this way, and you just follow this method and cut your shirt. But you must be careful that this armhole, front and back, are not the same. That way you save time. But for the sake of this tutorial, I will keep the front aside, and I'm going to draft the back for you to see. So I will mark the neck from this line. It's 3 inches width that we use in front. So the depth 1 inch. So I'm going to curve it like this, 1 inch depth. Then I will mark from this line. I'm applying my measurements from this line now. So my shoulder measurements, I added 1 inch to it. That is 10. So I will get my shoulder slope. I use 1/4 of an inch. I'm going to connect it to my neck line like this. Then my armhole, I will mark 9 inches. These are all my lines. This is my chest line now. So this line here, the 12 inches, the same thing with the front, is my bust line, and 16 inches my under bust line, 18.5 my half length line, 27 inches my shirt length, and 1.5 my seam allowance to hem the down and to join the upper part. So I will apply the 10 inches also at this area. Then I will rule like this. I will shoot out 1 inch arrow like so. Then I will connect my armhole like this. Okay, so my bust circumference divided by 4. I'm going to mark it. I'll quickly add my 1 inch for seam allowance. The same thing with the bust line. My under bust circumference divided by 4, 37. Because I didn't use the 37 again, I free it a little here. So I will be using 38 for this back so that it will go well with the front. I'll add my 1 inch seam allowance. So I'm going to connect my line like this. I'll mark my half length like so. Then I will add my 1 inch allowance. So I will blend it like this. My hip circumference divided by 4. I will add my seam allowance, but I took away ½ inch from the front because the shape is not up to my hip. So it's going to be like this. instead of like this. Now the next thing to do, I'm going to blend it in down part. I'll find the midpoint from this line to this line, divided by 2. This will be my midpoint. I'm going to blend it in down. So I will go in from the length line now by the side, 2 inches. Then I will connect it to this midpoint like this. So this is my shirt curve now. You can leave it straight. It depends on the kind of shirt you're making. Now to my zipper bulge, I will measure from my shoulder line where I will start marking the zipper bulge. For tall person, I use 9 inches. For short person, you can use 8 inches. Then I will stop before my full length, so I can stop at this point. Now from this 9 inches, I will just mark my ½ inch as the zipper bulge, ½ inch this way, just like that, ½ inch, and I will connect it till this point. I will connect it like this, connect it like this. Then from this point, I will find a way to blend it to the neck line. So I'm not going to allow my ½ inch to get to the neck point. If you want to use that, you should also add your dart to the back. Then you add your dart allowance. Now the 1 inch that I took away from the upper part, I'm going to replace it back now. Are you seeing now? Let me shift it a bit. So I'm going to replace this 1 inch back. I will just mark like this, like so. So this is my neckline. Will now be like this. I'm not going to make it too deep here, because if I cut like this, okay, I will just come out like this now. I will not make it too deep, like so. Then I will blend this area like this. This is the reason why I added the shoulder measurements up to 1 inch instead of ½ because of all of these cuts and join, so that I will not have shortage here. Now this back, when to sew it, make sure you use your 1 inch as a seam allowance that we added, so that the shape at the back will come out. Now that we have taken away ½ inch at the middle, still use 1 inch everywhere, both the middle, the down part, the upper part. So I'm going to cut it out now. So are you seeing I'm using this 1 inch extra, not this one. If not, you will have a shortage here. I will slant it down. This is my normal length. So I'm going to take away the zipper bulge. So this is my front, this is my back. So if I place this is the back now. If I join it to the front, I see now, this is how it should be. The back will supply allowance to me, the 1 inch allowance to complete the front. So you see my back and front. I'm going to transfer it to my fabric. Hello friends, welcome to my channel. Today I'll be doing the cutting and sewing of female long sleeve with a cuff. This line here is my starting point. So I'll place my tape from my starting point like this, and I will measure from my starting point to my elbow line. To my elbow line, 12 inches. Then the full length of the sleeve. The full length of my sleeve is 26.5 inches. So take your own measurement. So 26.5 inch. Because of the curve, so I'm going to minus 3 inches from it. You can use 2.5. So if I minus 3 inches from 26.5, I'll be left with 23.5 inches. This is 23.5 inches. So I'm going to add another 1 inch again for seam allowance to join the down and the upper part. So I'm going to rule all my lines like this. My elbow line, my full length and my seam allowance of 1 inch. I will come to the upper part like this. The sleeve cap height, I'll use 4 inches. This is not my first sleeve on YouTube, so if you're confused, you can check out from the other one, then you know how to calculate this one. So from this point, I'm going to impute my round sleeve. So I'm going to add my round sleeve divided by 2, 17 inches. Then I will add my 1 inch seam allowance. So this is my round sleeve now. Now from this point, I'm going to connect to the upper part like this. I see now. See what I have now. Connect to the upper part. Then I will use my tape to find the midpoint. What I have here is 11 inches divided by 2. So this will be my midpoint. Now from this midpoint, I'm going to add half inch to this part now. Half inch this way, up to the midpoint, half inch. Then I will connect it to my upper part like so. Are you seeing now? Then the armhole area, then the round sleeve area, I'm going to reduce it by half inch. So I'm going in like this by half inch. I will blend all of this together. So this is my cap height, the sleeve shape. Now I can now add my elbow round sleeve, 15 inches divided by 2. I'll add 1 inch seam allowance. My wrist round sleeve, 8.5. So this is how to take the wrist round sleeve. I see now. Because of the pattern of the sleeve, it has a cuff, so you don't need to make it boogers. Normally you're supposed to look like this to pull your sleeve out, but in this case, don't make it boogers. Just check. I can use 8 inches here. I see the gap. I can use 8.5, and if I check that 8.5 now, it will not pass here. But because there will be button, you don't need to worry about that. So I'm going to just mark now. 8.5 divided by 2. So I'll be using 4 1/4 like this. Then I will add 1 inch, my seam allowance. Then I will add 2 inches to it, because I'm going to pleat this part. You can pleat it 2, you can pleat it 1. If you want to pleat 1, don't add it up to 2 inches. You can add 1 inch. I'm going to connect it like this now. And connect it to the seam allowance. And now connect it to the upper part like so. So this is the shape of my sleeve. I will cut it out like this. So if you want to add a sleeve shape, just mark the center like this. The same way that we curve the armhole. And take away half inch before the seam allowance. Don't get to the seam allowance. So I'm going to mark like this, half inch, and I will stop before the center of the sleeve. So I will stop before the center of the sleeve. So the shape is going to be like this, and I will stop before the round sleeve also. So I will take this out now. Okay. So this will be the front, this will be the back. Don't forget that. So at this point, I just changed my mind. I don't want this allowance to be up to 2 inches. The pleat, I'm going to pleat just 1. I don't want to pleat 2. So I will take away 1 inch from it. So if I'm taking away 1 inch, I'm going to slant this round sleeve like this. Okay. I hope you're seeing what I'm doing. So if you want yours to be 2 pleats, you can leave that 2 inches. Like this is okay for me. If I pleat it now, yes, my sewing allowance is just 1 inch. So I just transfer my pattern now to my sleeve. You see that they are equal. So I'll open it like this. You see front, kissing front. I'm going to notch the center of my sleeve first. And I'll open it again. So the sleeve shape at the front, I'm going to place it now to take it out from this fabric like this. Now that the front is kissing the front, okay. I'll take it out like this. Now this is the front, remember? And the front, kissing front. I will come to this back line now. So how to mark my button extension, the slit by the side. I will come to this back. This is the front, remember? So this part now is the front. I'm going to mark it at this back side. So I will hold the 2 sleeves like this, and I will mark my center of the sleeve like so. Let me shift it down like this. Let me shift the upper part down so that you will see this down part very well. So I notch the center now. Now the side seam allowance is 1 inch. I will mark that 1 inch like this. So I will measure from this side seam to the center that I marked here. Whatever I have here, I'm going to divide it by 2. So I'll divide it by 2 like this. Then I will measure 4 inches the length. The slit will be 4 inches. So I'm going to open it like this. So see what I have now. Remember that this is the back side that this is a button slit. This is the front. I didn't touch this side. So I will keep it aside. So the next thing to do is to cut the cufflink extension. What I'm holding here is a collar gum, that is collar stay. The strong one, not gum stay, is collar stay. If you want to have a good shirt, this is what you should use. So my round sleeve, the round sleeve was 8.5, but I just changed my mind now. I've decided to make use of 8 instead of 8.5. You know, -3, we -3 from the sleeve. So this collar gum here is 3 inches, no seam allowance. While the length of the collar gum, since I'm using 8 inches for the round sleeve, that is the round sleeve, 8 inches. So I added a 1.5 inch for button allowance. It's the allowance for button hole. So when you fix it, you can have a space to button it. So I just add 1.5 inch to it. That is 3/4 this way, 3/4 this way. Now the fabric will supply me the allowance on this cufflink extension. You don't need allowance. The next thing you can do, if you want a design on it, you can choose to curve this down. This part facing me right now is the part that will join with the sleeve. So this is the down part. You can choose to slant it like this, give it a curve. If that is what you want, you can give it a curve, or you can give another shape this way, like this. You just decide on what you want. But for this one, I'm not curving anything. I want to use this thread as it is. And I also cut out the strap. This one here is 3 inches width. Then the length, just add extra to it. The slit here is 4 inches, but we will need more than 4 inches. So what I have here is 15 inches. 15 inches will serve me for the 2 sleeve. I also cut out this one. This one is 1.5 inch width. The length too is up to 15 inches. Thank you for watching. See you in my next video.